Okay. Hey, everybody. Katie and I are just chatting. Looks like we're live. We're friends. We have to chat besides just real estate. So my name's Anna Krueger. I'm with the MAPS ISA coaching program. And Katie, tell everyone who you are.
I'm Katie Collins. I'm also with the MAPS ISA group coaching program. I'm based here in Austin, Texas with the Heil Group.
Yep. And Katie, your background, listing agent, tell them how many homes you sold your first year.
I joined Tim's team in October of 2013, went through rigorous training with him October, November, December. He let me loose come January of 2014. In my first year, I sold and closed 144 listings. And it was, I would say, 95% expired, withdrawn for sale by owner lead source.
Yeah.
It was a very fun time.
Yes, that's a big number. 144, in case you missed it, first year listings. And then I joined real estate in 2013 and had 85 closings my first year as an ISA in a town where I didn't know anyone. And a huge part of that was expireds, FSBOs, cold calling, had some Sphere in there, my Rainmaker Sphere, different sources. So anyway, the point is we both have been in the trenches and now we coach full time and we know what it's like. So Katie, while we're waiting for people to join, why don't you share, right before this, you were telling me about an awesome client success story. So why don't you share that with everyone, get them pumped up, and then we'll jump into the webinar.
Okay, so I was just telling you, I'm super excited about one of my clients right now. She just joined the program at the beginning of the summer, which is also when she joined her real estate team. So she comes from a background of marketing, not real estate whatsoever. She actually is doing the ISA position part-time and then doing marketing work as well. And she came to me saying, hey, I'm really freaked out because my Rainmaker wants to take 30 listings in 60 days. And he's expecting it to come from me. And I said, great, let's talk about strategy for doing this, etc. She has been doing this now for 2 weeks. That's when our last coaching call was. And when I talked to her, she set 8 listing appointments last week.
Yeah, 8 in 1 week, part-time. That's phenomenal.
Withdrawn, and then also her Sphere. So it's like opening up more lead sources, getting intentional.
That's awesome.
She's also booking really great listing appointments at price points of 500,000 and higher as well. So
that's awesome.
I hear a lot of negative feedback about expired withdrawals and the price points, and it's just not always the case. It's good stuff. So I'm super excited for her right now.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm glad you shared that with us. It's good to hear the good stories that come out of the coaching. So yeah. Awesome.
So it's really good for this topic as well, as which is why I thought of it, because here we are, we're going into Q4 of the year. This is when everybody starts to complain and cry about lack of sales, lack of business, nothing's happening. This is the worst time of year. And here's this team that's becoming intentional and saying, you know what, we're going to do something about it and have a greater focus to it and have a goal around creating more business. So yeah. I just thought it was a perfect highlight of this conversation as well.
Perfect highlight. Yeah. And if you're listening to this, and Katie, while I say this, just real quick, in the chat box, it's saying they're having trouble hearing you compared to me, which you sound fine to me. But I don't know if there's a mic adjustment. Let us know in the chat box if that continues. But if you are listening to this, do you know that next week is really January? January 1st is October 1st. I mean, that's crazy. So really right now is really goal planning for 2020. So Q4 is actually, from a lead gen standpoint, it's really Q1 of next year. So the lead gen you do starting Tuesday, October 1st, is really January 1st results. So if you're listening to this and you loved that success story Katie just shared, if you couldn't hear it, she said someone working part-time in lead gen has set 8 listings last week and is really crushing it. And so if you would like help with your production, especially now's the time because we're setting up next year, go to isamapscoaching.com and there's a button that says talk to a coach or I'm interested in coaching. Just click on it and you get me, Katie, Annalisa, who's not here today. She's one of our coaches and we're happy to have a call with you and help you set up next year. So good stuff. Yep. Okay. So talking about 2020 and staying strong throughout the fall, let's just go to the chat box. We're going to make the content today off what you guys put in the chat box. So Denise is from Connecticut, and she said, I'm looking for motivation to push through the slower months. So Katie, why don't you, if you want, take that one.
The biggest motivation I draw on for pushing through the slower months is knowing and feeling very confident that 80% of agents are checking out right now.
Yep.
So my competition has actually gone down significantly. I already view myself as one of the top 20%ers in my market. So reminding myself that everyone else is going on vacation, taking breaks, and not just vacation, like physically going somewhere, but mentally.
Yeah.
It gives me a greater strength of renewed energy and enthusiasm around prospecting. I also know that it doesn't matter what time of year it is, people need to sell their house,
Yeah.
and I can help them do that. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to be intentional and purposeful about asking them. And the other thing that really pumps me up is knowing that through the holidays, I tend to be around more people, which just gives me an even greater opportunity to have these conversations. Right. I know I'm going to more mixers and holiday events, and here in Austin, Texas, hopefully it's going to be less than 100 degrees soon. So I'll be outside more talking to more people too. So it's a fun time of year for me to be more social and know that everyone else is kind of taking a break. And that's what gives me a ton of motivation.
Yeah. That's a great point. I actually never thought about all the activities and how much we're actually, most of us are in front of more people. That's a great, I never actually even thought about that. So
Okay,
then
well,
it's figuring out how to bring it up in the conversation.
I went out to dinner last week with a group of girlfriends. I could hear the people next to me talking about moving. I was making like little conversation. Boom. I have an appointment with them in 3 weeks to go look at houses. They're moving here from Seattle.
There you go. That's awesome because you
And
were out.
it's just me being out and about and being really intentional and aware of what's going on around me.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point. And I think too, and Denise, I'll share with you something that can help with mindset, but also something that you can say to clients, especially those sellers, and they say, well, I want to wait till after the new year because people aren't really out looking right now, is really just pointing out people that are looking are not tire kickers. So we find that usually you don't have to show your house as often. So imagine having less strangers walk through your house as compared to the summer, because the ones that are walking through are actually more serious this time of year because they're not out looking if they're not serious. Who's out looking in November, December in the holidays unless they're serious? So you have a better opportunity for one of those showings to actually buy your house versus just a curious looker. And so you can, one, that can help your own mindset, but also that's something you can share with sellers that are considering. The other thing is, and this is more of a holiday objection handler, not so much just a fall one, but a lot of people love the way houses look at Christmas time, or even when they're decorated for fall, they're more homey, it's more cheery. You know, you can imagine the coziness of the home better when it is decorated for the holidays. So that's another good one for sellers that are kind of hesitant, is pointing out to them, you know, usually your house looks best during the holidays because you have it all decorated and pretty. So those are things that can help. Okay, another question, fall ideas to share with Sphere that will remind them I'm in real estate. Do you want to take that one?
Okay, one of my favorite postcards that we do is the spring forward, fall back, reminding everyone the clocks. I mean, that's very thematic with the fall. But we do a couple of different things, honestly, around this time of year with our Sphere, primarily because, again, it's the holidays, it's the fun season to do things like this. Around Thanksgiving, we give out pies. Be the next hero at your Thanksgiving dinner and come with a free pie. I will tell you, I will never, ever, as long as I live, forget this. I was passing out pies. This guy comes up to get one. I'm making small talk with him. I'm trying to figure out whose past client this is. He's never worked with us. He has no idea how he even got this email, but heck, he showed up for the pies. And we sold his house and helped him buy a condo and another home for his son. So, I mean, yeah, we got 3 closings out of Bill Delamar coming into and also he worked in flooring and got me a great deal on the floor in my house. So
there we go.
Quadruple Rammy there.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting to me because he wasn't really anybody that had transacted with us. He was just somehow in our unmet category that got the email. That's another idea. Another one that I like that's not so much fall themed, but it's a really great Sphere call where it's not costing you anything like the cost of pies or postcards, is I love calling my Sphere to update my vendor list. I love calling my Sphere saying things like, hey, you know me, I'm helping people move here. that are coming from all over the world. So what I like to do is have a list of vendors that they can use that other friends, family members, past clients have used and had a great experience with. So who do you know that's giving you 5-star service lately? It could be anywhere. It could be anybody, your dentist, cleaning person, whatever. Oh, great. Thanks for that recommendation. By the way, what are you looking for? Are you in the market for anything? CPA? Great. Well, as I make calls, I'll make sure to ask on your behalf. By the way, who else do you know that I could help that's looking to buy a home, sell a house, or invest in real estate?
There you go. Lots of
It's,
value add.
yeah, I just love updating my vendor list and connecting with my sphere that way as well. And I feel like there's even more things to help them with during the holidays. Somebody to put up
Yeah.
lights, right? Where are you going to have a pumpkin patch photo shoot? Are you going to
Yeah.
host a pumpkin? I mean, there's so many great ideas. I just love this season. I'm,
I can tell from the look on
I
your
keep,
face.
I keep forgetting it's coming because it's 100 degrees here. So,
Yeah. I can only imagine. I'm in South Carolina. It's 100 degrees here too. It was 101 in my truck the other day.
Yeah.
That was nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing you can do too, and I actually have this idea from my lawn care service. And no joke, they're a little bit more expensive than some of the other people, but I love this newsletter they send me, and I'm dead serious. The newsletter is what has kept me as a client because I like being in the know. But once a quarter, they send out this cute little pamphlet. I think someone else makes it, and they just pay to have their label on it. And it talks about all the activities going on in this area for the fall. And then they do it for the spring, summer, winter. So any festivals, anything like that, I get it. Another one that I saw, and actually Rebecca, who works with our program, they sent this out, was a fall college football schedule magnet that could go on the fridge, and it has their logo on there. But when I want to know what football games are coming up for our local college teams, I just go look at that. And every time I do it, I'm seeing the Connell Company here in Greenville, South Carolina. So that's another idea for you. Yeah. Okay.
One of my favorite resources for these ideas too is a website called popbyideas.com, as well as Pinterest. I mean, every single agent that I've ever spoken with or heard talk on stage, I mean, it blows my mind, but majority of them, the ideas that they use, they heard somewhere else.
Yeah.
So just about sharing that information. Okay, let's keep going.
So popbyideas.com. I like that. Other question. And guys, keep typing in your questions because we've still got 15 minutes and we can get through a lot of these here. Okay, so Jenny, your question about touching database, I think that one was just hit. I know you typed that a while ago. Carla, I was just in Grand Rapids this summer. You have a nice town. Just saying. Okay. Oh, strategies for winterizing. That's another one. Just reading here. Okay. I'd like to take this one, how to ramp up for 2020 in the last quarter. So I'm going to touch real quick. And actually, this is our topic in the ISA coaching program starting Tuesday. We're spending 4 weeks on this topic. So I'm going to try to encapsulate it in 2 minutes or less, 4 weeks into 2 minutes. Awesome. Really what you want to do is first start off with how much money you intend to make next year. And that sounds really basic, yet a huge part of hitting your goals in 2020 is being emotionally tied into what you're working towards. So we all have likely created a goal before that just sounded good, right? Or at least I have. Maybe not everybody's done that, but I have. And then you get to July and it's real tough to keep pushing forward because, well, the number just sounded good. I don't really have a reason for it, right? So it starts with going through, and I like to call it your survive number. How much money do you need to make to just pay the bills, buy the food, put the gas in the car, whatever it is that you need to survive next year, what's that number? Combine it with all the extra stuff you want to do. Add in taxes, and now you have your income goal for next year. Then you work from there to figure out, well, okay, if that's my income goal, how many closings do I need to achieve that? So that's step one, figure out income goal. Step two, figure out how many closings that would require. And then step three is to figure out, just look at your past history, how many contacts do you need to get that many closings? And there's way more to that than just that, but that's kind of like the 30,000 foot view. If you're saying, I have no idea how many contacts it takes for me to earn a closing, start tracking today. And I can tell you the national average is 1 out of 75. So for 75 contacts, you can usually get one closing if you're average, if if you know what you're doing. So I think that's part of it, Rick, is getting clear on income goals, how many closings that would take, and then based on your skill, how many contacts it would take to get there. That's kind of like setting the framework for the whole year. And then Katie, why don't you touch on some of the daily activities that help set up 2020?
Okay. So the other thing I'll say too, to add on to this, that I think is kind of a good thing to keep in perspective with this 30,000 foot view, is we know the market goes up and down. We know that. Most people who are newer to real estate or get out of real estate, that's one of their biggest complaints, was it's too up and down. If you go back and look historically, your appointment set, appointment taken throughout the year, you're going to be in a much better position to assign your goals on a monthly basis. So what I mean by that, hear me when I say this, if your goal is to sell 120 houses next year, you do not want to mark your goals as 10 sales a month.
Yeah.
You want to anticipate where that market may dip in your market, and it may be different from city to city, state to state, market to market. You want to anticipate that dip. So for me personally, I can remember going into Q4 and the goals shifted. They were less than what they were in the spring, but they were still in alignment to hit our year-end target and goal. So one thing that really helped me is right before we got into Q4, Tim sat us down and was like, all right, this is it. This is where we're really going to kick butt and take names. And you might not feel like you are, because instead of taking 30 listings this month, you're going to take 20, but that is going to be 19 more than what your average agent's going to take right now. Yeah. So having that perspective really helped us launch into that Q4 with more tenacity, instead of thinking like, oh, we're taking half the number that we took in spring.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind, Haro, who's my team owner from the team I worked with, he always used to say the right activities lead to the right results. And it might not always show up. In fact, it usually won't show up the week you do that activity. So he just always encouraged me, know how many contacts it takes for you to get a closing, and always hit that number per how many closings you want. So what it would look like, just for easy math, let's say that I needed 1,000 contacts in the entire year, which you would need way more than that, but let's just say that, and say that I'm going to work 46 weeks in the whole year. You want to figure out how many weeks are you actually working. Take out conferences, because when you're at a conference, you're working, yet you're not on the phone, right? At least not nearly as much. Throw in a week for sick time. What vacations might you go on? Do you want to take career visioning? That's some time off the phone. And I find most people we work with come out to around 46 weeks they're actually working. So take that 1,000 contacts, or it's probably more like 3,000 or 4,000, divide it by 46 weeks, and now you know how many contacts you need to hit each week, and just always hit it. Don't change, don't lessen it, always hit that number or more. And that's a way to really proof your business, to make sure that you don't have an issue hitting your number no matter what.
And hold yourself accountable on a weekly, if not daily basis, so that if you're going through the month and you're starting to slide from your goal, you can recognize it early enough to do something about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't help you to get to the end of the month and go, man, I was supposed to take 20 listings and I took 2.
Yeah. And now what? Yeah. And then you're way off track.
Yeah.
Good point. Renee asked how to increase without becoming overwhelmed. And the first thing that came to mind, Renee, well, first is getting clarity on what it is that you want to increase. I'm assuming closings, contacts, something along those lines. And I think the main thing is to make sure that you are working on your conversion numbers. So I just had a call with a team where we got to the end of figuring out how many contacts they needed next year, and it was overwhelming. It was really so many that we had to think, is this realistic? So we went back and we tweaked one of their conversion numbers to be average. They're below average currently. And we just said, okay, let's just say you became average at this conversion number, which was I set an appointment and they actually show up. They were kind of low in that category. So we said, let's just say that through coaching, we get you to be average or above average there. Their contacts needed in the entire year dropped by 2/3. By 2/3. They went from needing 146 contacts a week as an agent, not an ISA, as an agent, down to needing 30 contacts a week. So it was by more than 2/3. It was a significant number difference just on sellers. So anyway, the point is, if you're looking to increase but not overwhelm yourself, it's not always about more contacts, more contacts, more contacts. It's looking at your skill. Because if you can increase your conversion rate, you'll get more out of the contacts you're already making. So what if you could set 2 contacts or 2 appointments out of 20 contacts versus 1 appointment out of 20 contacts? And that's what we do a lot in coaching. And I just want to say real quick, it's called the ISA coaching program, yet we have a lot of people in there that are agents. So really it's a lead generation coaching program. So if you're realizing, some of my conversion numbers could be better and I want to get more for the same amount of work, contact us and we're happy to have a session with you and see if that coaching program is the right fit for you. ISAmapscoaching.com. Okay. What else is in the chat box?
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out where you were.
I was up pretty high, actually.
Okay.
Renee Rogers coming down.
Oh, best end of year script for Sphere of Influence. I mean, you could be checking in with people for New Year goals to figure out that's another good one too for the vendor script that I mentioned earlier. Like, it's the start of a new year, new you. What are your goals this year? I'd love to help you hit them. We do a lot on New Year's for expireds. Obviously, that's one of our biggest days of the year to be cranking out expired calls because that's when we have a lot of them. So that's a really big focus with outbound there. And then our goal has been to really get more personalized with our database and just have it carved out groups within it. So it would be strategic to each group within our database now, I would say. For example, anybody that's bought with me this year, at the end of the year, I'm calling to remind them, hey, this is when you get to put your homestead exemption on. So we have specific messages for segments of our database. Yeah. Okay. Customer appreciation events next week. Cute movie theater. We'll be watching Hocus. I would love to go to that. Please invite me.
Movie events usually have great results.
We've gotten great out.
For some reason, that just reminded me of this. I have no idea why. I had a client though that rented a dumpster and had it at the office, and it was like clean out time. You're cleaning all your files out, you're getting ready for the holidays, you're putting stuff away, getting stuff out. If you have stuff that you need to get rid of, I've got the dumpster here at the office. Just stop by. You can use it. And he had so many people stop by the office from a dumpster. I remember when he told me the idea, I thought, we will see how this goes. And it was great. So there's another out of the box. Or a shred day is another good one.
I was like, I could really use a dumpster right now myself. So that's
I know.
So what I would say though, more importantly about any of this is be really intentional with what your goal is for any event or call that you're doing. Yeah. We have hosted events in the past where we failed because it was just, we were too focused on the logistics of getting people in and moving them around that we did not slow down and have conversations with our attendees. And if we did, they were not intentional. So Tim always gives us like a huddle up before we do something like this and say, okay, remember, you want to connect, you want to find out what's new, you want to find out how you can help them or anybody that they know. And so I would just say, don't lose sight of that as you make these calls or as you do these events, because it's really easy to do, especially if you're organizing a lot of different pieces of that event.
Yeah, you have to remember your intention of it. I see 2 questions here I want to get to real quick. By the way, if we don't get to all, I love the interaction today, by the way. If we don't get to all your questions, just go to ISAmapscoaching.com and hit talk to coach and we can chat offline. So Helene says, if I get a lot of leads, what can be done to convert them? I tend to move on to leads. What are your top systems? So that is a loaded question. I'll give a quick answer. That could be a whole webinar in and of itself. The quick answer is you want to reach out to leads at least 6 times in 10 days. 6 times in 10 days. Whether that be, once you reach contact them, you don't need to keep doing that. But until you have contact 6 times in 10 days, it's proven to have a 90% pickup ratio. So they'll either call you back or pick up 6 times in 10 days. The other thing would be to make sure that you are having follow-up conversations. I often picture it kind of like, I'll use my little notepad here. If I have a new lead and I talk to them one time and it doesn't go anywhere and then I just move on and I'm so focused on new leads, I literally picturing it like I'm taking all these leads and just doing that with them all day, right? Like you're just doing that all day. Most appointments come from the 5th to 7th conversation. So a huge part of this job is having tenacity and not giving up. Now, through good scripting, you won't need 5 to 7 conversations to convert all these leads. We can lower that. But average is 5 to 7 conversations in order to actually set the appointment. So if you have 1 conversation, 2 conversations, deem it not going anywhere, and just move on, there's actually a huge income opportunity that we're missing, plus serving that client, right? They're not getting the help they need if we just move on. So I think the key there, Helene, is follow up, not just with attempted contact, but once you reach them, make sure you stay in contact with them.
Yeah, and Helene, I just want to point out too, this is a lot of content that we're like throwing at you, and there's honestly a lot more too. So you probably benefit from one of our free strategy sessions. So you definitely will want to check that out and look to see if that's going to work with your schedule, just so that we can make sure, because it's hard on a webinar when we're just doing all the talking. You know what I mean? To make sure we're helping you with your needs.
Well, and a lot of it too is customizing it. So it's like we can share general things that work. Like Rick, I saw you typed in and said 1 contact out of 70 or 1 appointment out of 75. And then you said you mostly do circle prospecting. Well, that's a different metric. So that's just an example of why that one-on-one conversation is much more valuable than just the webinar, because we can personalize it to whatever you've got going on. So check out the strategy session on isamapscoaching.com, and then there's a button you can hit. Okay. What other questions do we have here? Oh, here's a good one. If we don't have a year's worth of number history, how do you suggest identifying a realistic goal?
Oh, like historical data.
Right. So you're new, you don't really have a track record yet. So how do I, that's a common question. How do I make sure I'm not being unrealistic next year?
So I know what they tell you in bold, which has worked really well for us when we were first doing this, I guess you could say, is they would tell you to guesstimate lower on your conversion numbers. So instead of putting your conversion at 90%, also it's going to help you to know your lead sources. Like, are you calling expire withdrawals? Or are you calling the sphere? Because those conversion rates are going to be different. But I would estimate low on my conversion up front. And honestly, through your first 3 months of tracking, you will already get a better insight into what your true conversion numbers are, and you can adjust it if necessary. But it's better to guess that you have low conversion numbers than higher ones for this. So I'd put it at about 50-40% for conversion if you really just don't know yet, and anticipate that it will go up, especially depending on the lead source.
Conversion for which point? 50% conversion for which thing? Like set to held to signed?
Yeah, I'm thinking of it as an agent. So set to signed. Yeah.
Okay. So here's what you want to track is contacts, sets, keps, or helds, depending what you call it. And then if you're an ISA listening, and definitely if you're an agent, you still want to track, did they show up and did they sign? And as an ISA, yes, the agent's the one getting them signed, but that's partially on me, because if I set it up correctly, it should be relatively easy for them to get the signature most of the time, not always.
Or at least attend it. Like, that's the big piece, I feel like, is does the appointment actually stick?
Right.
Or do they cancel it?
So contact, set, held, signed, and then closed. And you have to track closed, because especially if you're paid for closings, even though I have nothing to do with it at that point, I need to figure out, going back to this webinar, how many contacts does it take for me to get a closing? That's a big important metric that we want to get figured out. Okay, we are actually out of time. Katie, real quick, people were asking about the website popbyideas.com. Is that right?
Yes, I think that is right. I have to double check it, but I'm pretty sure if you just Google popbyideas.com or something to that effect, you'll find it. It's been a hot minute since I've been on it.
Okay, so a couple resources, and then we'll let you guys go, is the ISA Mastermind group on Facebook. I think most of you are in there. I recognize your names. I love that community, just saying. So if you're not in there, go ahead and join that, and we'll post when we do these again. We'll make sure we post to let you guys know. And then the free strategy session. Ryan, I saw you just signed up, so that's awesome. And then we will reach out to you or might be Annalisa or Alana. They're all coaches with us and will help you strategize. All right, guys, you have a good day. Anything else, Katie?
That's it. Thank you guys. And let's go Q4.
All right. Bye.
Bye.